Hey there, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Melissa Crispell. I am the clinical training specialist for Perk Integrative Health. For those of you that are new to the group, Perk Integrative Health is the beautiful marriage of Perk Nutraceuticals and ELISA Act Biotechnologies, home of the LRA by ELISA Act Food and Chemical Sensitivity Test. Thank you for joining us. We have with us today Dr. Russell Jaffe, MD, PhD, and CCN, and he is the founder, the creator. He is the man behind Perk and ELISA Act. We thank you, Dr. Jaffe, for being here with us. And here we go. Thank you for tuning in with us again today. We hope that you've seen the other videos in this series. We've talked about white tea, we've talked about green tea, we've talked about tea preparation, we've talked about shade-grown coffee and the health benefits of the tea and the coffee. We've talked about coffee preparation. Please, if you're finding us on Facebook or YouTube, all of those videos are here. You can scroll down and see those. Today, we're going to talk about adult beverages. Adult beverages, Dr. Jaffe, what about them? They're great, right?
Yes, in the traditional way. If you take nature, nurture, and wholeness and you end up with mead or beer or homemade kombucha, I think you're doing yourself a huge favor, both in terms of digestion and mood. And here, I'm not even sure who said this, but it's a great quip. A man is a fool if he drinks below the age of 40 and a fool if he doesn't drink above the age of 40. And you can adjust that to your preference, chronologically. In moderation, whether we're talking about beer or wine or liquor or liqueurs or tinctures, each one is a category. And there are people who spend their entire lives learning about that specific category. And I'm interested in all of them, because for me, it's about a wide variety of foods and beverages in a wide variety of ways within a well-hydrated, well-nourished, wholeness-oriented approach to life. Now, when we talk about wholeness in regard to beer, we're talking about the beers that say made from organic or biodynamic ingredients. Out of every 100 beers, you will find 1 or 2 that have that. You can even check with the store that sells it to find out when it comes in, because the people who know about it will come and get it when it comes in. And if you're drinking commercial beer, either the brands we know or even the ones that say super hopped and chocolate flavored, and what else is there? And raspberry, essence. The few that are very traditional, and there is one raspberry beer that only comes out for a very short part of the season, and it's done by monks. And it's like the Father Superior is going to drink this, so you better do it right. But it is utterly delicious, and it is so different than any of those things that were they were an ale, they were a beer, to which someone added, squirted in some raspberry. And assumed that the raspberry was really raspberry. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a lot of raspberries that ended up in the bottle. So there are what I would call connoisseur adult beverages that in German, in Yiddish, they're called mechaya. Mechaya is an unconditional joy. And that's what they are. And you sip on them. You don't need to pour them down your throat. I don't really recommend that. Only water and herbal beverages can you, even that, maybe some Pellegrino every once in a while. But no, these are things you would want to treat as foods. So chew them, experience them, let them float upon your tongue and effervesce into your nose, because they actually have very delicate tastes and aromas that are quite delightful. What's a delight? Something you enjoy. Now, Nothing to excess. If you're buying, if you're intending to have one or two beers and you end up having the case, then we have to talk. But if it relaxes you and you're feeling in a better mood and you're nicer to the folks around you and all of that, and you're an adult, one of the essences that I have distilled over the many years is that young people shouldn't and older people should. And you can fill in the blank any way you want on that, including adult beverages. Now, my preference, I like champagne, but it's a bit expensive, the good ones. And yes, if you're serving Veuve Clicquot, I will come probably. But Prosecco, which is called Italian champagne, it's not the same. It's done with Galera grapes rather than champagne grapes, for those who care. And it's a slightly different process, but you end up with this sparkling white beverage that, if you get the Cartesa, which I do, again, if you're willing to pay a little bit more, you get much more value and nutrition. So Bisol, B-I-S-O-L, Bisol Prosecco Cartesa, and here, any year. Any year. With champagne, and specifically the Veuve Clicquot, they only bring out the bottles about every 5 years, because if it ain't perfect, then you can't give it to grandma. The name of the wine is what grandma drinks, and she actually likes the champagne, so they have a big cellar with it, and they sell it for 4 or 5 years. Now, no, I'm acknowledging them. I'm not trying to do a satire on Veuve Clicquot. But I do think that a good quality Prosecco, especially a Cartesa, at a minimum what they call DOCG, not DOC. DOC is like commodity. DOCG is pretty good. Cartesa, lucky. there are places who can't get you the Cartesa, and then you have to say, I will only buy the Cartesa, and then their distributor will get it. Red wine. There are many, many red wines, of course. You have Bordeaux. That's where things like Saint-Emilion and Pomerol and so forth are. Then you have the Burgundian region, which is a whole different kind. Then you have the Alsatian region, which is a whole different kind. Now, I know from nothing about Alsace, and I don't actually like the wines that come out of there, so I can't talk about them because I'm only going to talk about what I like. It turns out the best Burgundian wine for many, many years has been biodynamic, because the vintner, the guy who owns it, did not want these tractors, they're small, but did not want these tractors to compact the earth. He wanted to keep renewing and improving. And his plants not only yield the best quality, but they withstand the blight. Every once in a while, some blight comes through and a lot of the rootstock is destroyed, and people moan, actually. They do, because they care about their gardens. So the best Burgundian wine is biodynamic. There are a couple of different labels for it, but look for biodynamic Burgundian. And if you like that kind of wine, you will truly enjoy a delicious, nutritious adult beverage. Now we get to the Bordeaux area. Now, I decided I'm going to pick one little area of Bordeaux, and once I understand that, I'll branch out. And I've been in Saint-Emilion for many years, and I'm not ready to branch out because I certainly, okay. However, for whatever reason, and it probably has to do with climate change, the years of 2010, 2015, and 2016, and potentially 2019, but at least the three I mentioned, were among the three best of the century. It was almost impossible to get a bad wine out of the Bordeaux region from 2010 or 2015. 2016, I would recommend being more selective, but pick your Cru or Grand Cru wine that you can afford. Mm-hmm. And however much you want to spend, I promise you someone else could spend more. So don't go for the highest price.
Right.
In fact, if you like, as I do, if you like Bordeaux wines, online, there are many people who will recommend and be honest, because they're not just shills for the winery. These are people who love Bordeaux. They want to have people enjoy Bordeaux and get good value. So you can spend $300 to $500 a bottle, but don't ask me to do that. On the other hand, I do like a strong Saint-Emilion, and I'll spend, I don't know, I'm not going to tell you how much I spend, but I spend above the average, but I don't spend a lot, and I want a value, and I go to the store and I say, Ben, because his name is Ben. Ben, if I wanted something that was like $100+ Saint-Emilion, what do you have for half of that or less? And actually, usually they will know if you're nice to the people in the store, because they work in a liquor store because they work in a liquor store. And it turns out that these very high-end labels, Boisson, or any of the ones that are memorable and very, very, very expensive, when they know how many labels they're going to put on the bottle, and if they have more wine left after they have run out of labels, they do not throw that wine away. Mm-hmm. They bring out their own knockoff brand at a lower price point. You may never have heard of it, but if the person in the store says, licking their chops and saying, this is really like a 2 or 3 times expensive wine, pay attention. Then you get to port. Now, port is only in Portugal, and in 2010, there was an extraordinary production of extraordinary port that has now gotten very expensive, but when it first came out, it wasn't so expensive. And port basically is about years, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. If you want to serve me the 50-year-old port, again, I'll probably come by, because that would be really hard to get and expensive. But the 20-year-old, the 30-year-old, not inexpensive. This is not $9.95, but a little bit of port at the right time of the evening goes a long way to soothe my palate or my whatever, and it helps me before my salt and soda bath and abdominal breathing and active meditation and stretching. It helps me get in the mood, and a little bit of an aged port can really go a long way. And there are a number of companies, and if the company says, we've been in business for 250 or 350 years, the chances are they make a good product.
That sounds like it soothes the soul, Dr. Jaffe, not just the palate. That's great.
Well, that's the point. If you get the balance in an adult beverage, everything about you and about the world around you is better. Why? Trust me. But more importantly, verify, and you'll confirm for yourself that that's true.
Yeah. I would like to take this moment to talk with our viewers about the LRA by ELISA Act test.
No, I have one more to add before I get there.
Oh, please.
A very important category that I did not mention was, first of all, the category of white wine that doesn't sparkle, but more importantly, German whites. So look up John Joseph Prum, P-R-U-M, J.J. Prum. They are very easy to find, but the best of their wines are on allocation. And, it's a value proposition. But this is a fellow whose family has been doing this for a very long time in the Rhine and Rhone valleys. And he has a PhD in winemaking. But the bottom line is, don't spill his wine. It is worth sipping and savoring. It's subtle. If they can't do it as well as they want to do it, they just don't do it. So you can't always get a lot of it. But it's worth the premium. And as I said before, in regard to Saint-Emilion and Bordeaux, they know how many labels they're going to put on bottles because they know how many of that quality at that price they're going to sell before they start bottling. But if there's wine left at the end, again, they don't throw it away. And yes, their workers can take some of it, but they'd have to bathe in it. So they put it out under a different label. And again, talk to the people in the store and say, I'd like to buy the J.J. Prum Wollener. What do you have? And then there's three categories. In German wines, it's Cabinet, which means commercial grade. Spätlese, which is good. And then Auslese, which is quite good. And then you get Baron Auslese, which, if you can ever get a bottle of it, you probably won't buy 2 bottles, but enjoy that one. No, so in every category, there's an interesting history, there's an interesting opportunity to understand and savor. And as I've said, often, I think life is to be lived. I think we should nourish and nurture ourselves, including with moderate adult beverages. Oh, and I didn't talk about whiskey, and I'll just say for a minute, it's Macallan 12. Now, I understand that was a Scotch, and some people like bourbon, and there's some excellent bourbons out there. There's some excellent rye, there's some excellent vodka, this and that. But I had friends who went on tour of whiskeys all over the world, the best of the best, including, all over the world. When they came back, it was a toss-up between Macallan 12 and Macallan 18.
Well, all right. Who knows, folks? One day you might just see us. We'll do a whiskey and a bourbon tasting and put them all together. Who knows? You never know when Dr. Jaffe and I will get creative. I do want to mention the LRA by ELISA Act test, though. I have to share.
Yes. Now, first the bad news, then the good news. The bad news is that almost every adult beverage has all the bad antigens in it, and that's just life the way it is. You think that vodka is just ethanol, but it comes from multiple grains and with multiple contaminants because they don't use the best grain to make vodka. They use the spent or moldy grain to make vodka because it's, let me check, cheaper. And just for full disclosure, there was a time when the country of Russia paid the Pepsi-Cola company in vodka, tank cars and shiploads of vodka, in order to get the Pepsi syrup into Russia. And they paid 10 times what they would have in cash or rubles because they didn't have the cash nor the rubles. So be careful of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a colleague and friend of mine, this is one of the pioneers of environmental medicine, and he just went out and bought good and cheap grades of everything and had them antigen measured and so forth. And the bottom line is, unless there are a few exceptions, which I'm going to mention and highlight, but without those exceptions, what they don't tell you, you need to know. And they probably don't know themselves, but they don't care. And you must, if you're sensitive. So that does lead us to the lymphocyte response assay, the LRA by ELISA Act, to determine whether you are corn or wheat or rye or oats or soybean sensitive, whether you're sugar sensitive. You can't make alcohol without sugar. Now, there's not a lot of sugar left, but what little sugar antigen was in there is left because you're fermenting the sugar, not the antigen. If we, dig a little bit deeper, we find that there are a few exceptions, quote, to this rule of contamination, and they are the following. There is 100% potato vodka out of Sweden. Yeah. There is 100% grapeseed vodka out of France. There are a few vodkas that very specifically say we only use one source and we try to use the best quality source because we're going to charge you a premium. The other exception is the one adult alcoholic beverage that has no grains, and that's tequila. Now, it comes from a cactus. Why? Because many years ago, when they didn't have anything else to do, people tried to ferment everything. And this particular cactus, it's a saguaro cactus, but it's a cactus, yields a very interesting beverage that has no grain in it whatsoever. So even the people who are vodka sensitive may, not to excess, but may be able to have tequila. And within tequila, you have at least 3 grades. And there may be more because usually it's, like basic, good, and better. And then there's the stuff that's very hard to get. That's even better than that, but, very expensive. And I'm pretty sure this is true. The guy who owns Patron was a musician who fell in love with tequila, but realized that there was nobody who had really globally branded tequila. And Patron was born.
That's one of my favorites.
Oh, it's very good. And it does come in silver, gold, and platinum. I think that's right, but definitely 3 grades.
Yeah.
Oh, now the añejo is the dark, so you can get it in dark or light, but that's a preference.
Yeah, folks, I highly encourage you, if you are experiencing just unexplained things, you don't have to be full blown laying in bed ill. That's the shocker of looking at your food and chemical sensitivities. I can tell you that as Dr. Jaffe shared about his India spiced tea and the fluoride content, I was going through something, and this is 2010, 2011. And every morning after having wine the night before, I would wake up puffy and red, like someone had been smacking me all night long, and have this massive headache. And my kids would joke and say, well, how much did you have last night? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a matter of how much. It could be half a glass.
Right.
And when you encouraged me to do my LRA test that year, the results came back, and I had been spending obscene amounts of money. I'm embarrassed to say how much I spent on wine to try and find the right one that would work for me. And it was, organically and biodynamically grown and imported from here and all of those things. And it was the red grapes that I was reactive to.
Right.
So it didn't matter which one it was.
No, exactly right. And that's why the LRA Biolizac test is so essential, so important, and so helpful.
Absolutely. And you can recover from these reactions when you follow the Joy in Living the Alkaline Way and taking a look at those recommended supplements in your LRA results book. And, you can do this. You can. It's not easy, and you didn't get here overnight, so it's not going to be fixed overnight, but it can be better. So thank you.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jaffe, for being with us and sharing with us and having some fun with adult beverages. Like I said, folks, you never know when Dr. Jaffe and I get together, we can get creative with bourbon tastings or something like that. So everyone take care.
I'm in for that. Waterford.
There we go. Woodford's my favorite. All right, everybody.
That's right, Woodford. But thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.